Welcome to another episode of the Aristi podcast. I'm Michael Palmer, Sales Director here at Aristi, and I'm delighted to say on the podcast today, we've got fellow host Harj Singh.
Hi, Mike.
Yeah, CEO and founder of Aristi.
That's right, yes.
Yeah, so today I think it's going to be a fascinating podcast, suitable for any entrepreneurs, any leaders in a business, any cybersecurity professionals, any IT professionals really, anyone that's looking to build on their career, potentially start a business themselves, or just look to improve their understanding of how running a business and how building it from quite literally the ground up works. So yeah,
you've set the bar really high there.
So yeah, I think it's.
You didn't tell me you were going to say that.
No, that's purely unprompted and unscripted, and yeah, that's the way we like to be. So yeah, if you haven't worked out already, we're going to be talking about the journey of Aristi from Harj founding and beginning the company in 2008, right up to the present day, all the challenges and fantastic sort of times throughout that journey as well. But yeah, sort of really getting into the journey that you've had so far.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. It's almost 17 years now. So it's been a long time, but had its ups and downs, which we will go into, I'm sure.
Sure.
But yeah, I have to say I have enjoyed it. It's been I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. You know, I do enjoy it, and you know we all love what we do.
For sure.
That's why we're here. So let's get into it.
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. It's 2008. You were in a senior management role at a large enterprise.
I was in a senior management role in a large enterprise. And you know, sometimes, during my journey, I've often thought, you know, I should have stayed there. Because it was comfortable. It was there was a lot of travel involved. Right. I was responsible for a team of cybersecurity consultants. We were delivering information assurance services, and I worked alongside the pen testing team that was in the same business. You know, I was the senior manager. I was in a good salary.
Yeah.
Lots of responsibility, but. You know, it was tough in the sense that there was a lot of travelling involved. It was the office was in Walton-on-Thames.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say who it is, but if people know Walton-on-Thames, you can probably guess. And people who know me obviously know, where I worked. But it's not a secret really. So there was a lot of travelling involved, but I just did it. You know, in those days we just got in the car and drove 3.5 hours to the office. Did what I need to do. We're out in client sites. So, you know, it was a good role. But what I found, what I started to see was that, so there was a couple of things, 2 or 3 things. Firstly, we weren't given the time to build good relationships with our customers. I think that was something which didn't feel right to me. And it was probably driven by the need to make as much money as possible. And now, don't get me wrong, you know, businesses have to make money because they won't survive otherwise. You know, you've got to make profit, and that's the whole purpose of a business. And we'll get into this. You know, there's a way of doing this, I think, which doesn't compromise your core values and your core purpose. Yeah. It didn't feel right to me. I thought at the time that there was a better way. You know, I wanted to build better relationships with the clients. I didn't really want to focus on making as much money as possible. I wanted to deliver, you know, good quality services and wanted to deliver value. And what really, I think, swung it for me at the time was that we were continuously asked to sell products which that organisation kind of made, if you like. So they or sold on behalf of other organisations, but they were branded products, unified comms products, which, as a I suppose an independent advisor in an organisation, you still have this level of independence. You can't go into an organisation and say, you know, I've just done your risk assessment, and here are some of the challenges that you need to remediate. By the way, you need this product to fix it. You know, I can't be saying that.
It's that ethical boundary,
Absolutely,
isn't it?
Yeah. It's up to them to decide where they go for the product. You know, otherwise Yeah, it does. It is a boundary. It's a boundary issue. And that didn't feel right to me. So I still remember the day I went home to my wife and said, I'm leaving. And I wanted, I can
Leaving the business, not
yes.
leaving your wife.
No, no, I didn't say that. Thanks for clearing that up, Mike. No, I said, I'm leaving I'm leaving my role. And so bearing in mind, so this 2008, I was in a good wage. It was a very, very stable role. Obviously there were chances of promotion. My son, I've got two boys. My eldest was one, I think, just about turned one around that time. So, quite young family. I was about 4 years into my marriage. We'd recently moved house. So there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
Mortgage, new marriage, son. And, wife looked at me and said, are you sure? You sure you want to do this? And I had this self-belief that I could do it. And I had this belief that I could do it better than a global enterprise with, huge financial backing, looking back, I just think, what was I on? I just felt I could do a better job.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go into a contracting role. A lot of, and I'm not saying this is the wrong thing to do, but a lot of people, a lot of cybersecurity consultants, well, many, they go contracting because that's where they think the money is. And,
Sure.
I never wanted to do that because it's never been about the money for me. What I wanted to do was to build something. I wanted to build something that could deliver the kind of services I felt, it sounds a little bit cliched, the clients deserved. So I did leave, and we've had some tough times, and we will go into this, I think. And my wife, I couldn't have done it without her, really, and she's supported me throughout the journey. But it was a difficult decision. It was tough.
Sure.
But I think what kind of swung it for me was I genuinely believed that I could do it. And if I hadn't have taken that step, we wouldn't be here now. So I 100% think it was the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't an easy decision to make.
For sure. And that is the key thing. It was a real life-changing decision for you, wasn't it?
It was. Absolutely.
And here we are today. So,
yeah.
Aristi. What does the name mean?
So, the name is the brand of the business. I understood that it's really important to have a strong brand because it's for me it was a personal thing. So, it had to reflect what the business was all about, and there were a number of things that for me were really important in an organisation, and it took me a long time to think of a name which reflected my purpose for the organisation and then the purpose of the organisation itself. So Aristi is a word in the Sanskrit language. Sanskrit's almost 4,000 years old. It's one of the oldest languages in the world, and it means security. So it's the first word for security. So this is going back to my thinking at the time, and it is still the same now. So my goal was always to build something and make that the go-to cybersecurity business in the UK, to be the best. So the first word for security really resonated for me. It also means excellence or the best or to be the best in Greek. So that obviously linked into the first word of security really meant a lot to me. And thirdly, it's in northwestern Greece up in the mountains. There's a really peaceful region called Aristi. And this is something that really resonated with me because when we used to go out to see our clients, there was almost this sigh of relief, thank God you guys are here, it'd be fine now. And I wanted to keep that going in the business. I wanted to keep that kind of sense of calmness. Having said that, through the tough times, it was anything but calm. So it took us a while.
You're the swan with the legs kicking in the
It was a little bit, yeah. It took us a while to kind of kind of capture the essence of calmness, because I didn't little did I know that running a business is tough. But those three things, the first word for security, excellence, being the best, and that sort of serenity and calmness, but they were really important to me. And we've not really used, as you know, this in marketing, because this has always been a very, very personal thing for me. And I also thought, well, people are not interested in the name. They just see the name. They don't really know what's behind it. It's only recently since you've said, oh, do you need to do this? Thanks, Mike. Yeah. We started talking about it. I think we did write a blog a while ago. Reluctantly, I wrote something about Aristi. But that's what it is. That's where it comes from. And that's really important to me. And that's what it means.
Yeah, I think the key thing for me that I've always known when you've said to me about the name Aristi is you were really thinking early on, right at the start, what does this mean? Yeah. It's not sort of superfluous, superficial, like, it's a name. Yeah. It's sort of create that strong foundation and base of what you want it to be, the business, and then you build from there. And some building it took. So so the first 4 years, you were still being a consultant, still sort of learning your way, building a small business up, all those sort of new challenges for a business. And then, 2012 hit, which was, UK recession and a particularly tough year for Aristi.
It was a really tough time. Really tough time. We had to. So I did. I started off with, it was me. One of my team members at the time came along with me. He's no longer with us. I mean, he's not dead. We didn't bury him in the car park or anything. We decided to part ways.
He's not with Aristi anymore.
He's not with Aristi anymore. I think quite early on, we decided that I think it was because it was quite tough. We had slightly different views on what the business needed to be. Anyway, it was no hard feelings. He's a lovely guy, really hard-working guy. Anyway, there was me and maybe a couple of other consultants working with me. We had to do everything ourselves. We had to market. We had to bring new clients in. When I left the business, a couple of clients came with me, and I did speak to my director at the time, and it was all pretty open. And they said, yeah, that's fine, provided they come through the organisation and then we can outsource the services to yourself, and that was all good. But we had to do everything ourselves. We had to consult. We had to bring in new customers when projects finished. There'd be a lull because we were too busy delivering and not spending time developing the next client. And we're competing against known brands. No one knew who Aristi was. So it was really tough, really tough. And then the recession hit, and as in it was a technical recession. So any kind of periods of time where things get tough, people don't want to spend on things like security. We didn't call it cyber in those days, it was information security and so on. So the hardest thing for me was going home to my wife and saying, there's another month that we're not going to get paid. That was really tough for me. So I made sure that the people who worked for Aristi at the time all got paid. But there was often not enough money to pay myself. Now, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because, I've got a wife and a child and a mortgage. But I also knew that if I didn't pay my team, I wouldn't have a business.
Your second son would have been here by then as well.
Yeah.
So
he was, yeah. So he's 13 months behind the first one. So yeah. So we're a young family. But again, what carried me through this was this belief that I can do it. And I can't pinpoint why I had such a strong belief, but I really believed that I can make this work. And there were several occasions when we went without, but the team all got paid. But we came through it. We got through it, and obviously we're here now, and we're doing well, and it's great. Yeah. But it takes quite a lot of resilience to get through those tough times.
For sure. And you needed a breakthrough, really, didn't you? And I actually in one of your LinkedIn posts recently, I know you mentioned how you turned up every day, regardless of how the business was going
Yep.
and the tough times.
Yep.
All you can do is turn up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then one of my favourite quotes is actually one of my dad's is, if you can't be lucky, be good.
Yeah.
And it's actually a plagiarism of Gary Player, a golfer. So that's one for my dad out there. But so the breakthrough came in 2013.
You did. Yes.
You entered the SC Magazine Awards and won Security Project of the
We
Year.
did, and I can show you. We've got it here.
I saw it as I was about to ask this question.
There you go, folks. That's the very award that we won back in 2013.
Yeah.
It was a game changer. This was.
Probably needs a bit of a dust in there, Hodge, but yeah.
It's heavy, actually. It's solid metal, and this is the only award we've ever gone for. We've not gone for any more awards after this. Lots of reasons for that. Mainly, this was something which we. So I wasn't really sure we should go for this.
Yeah.
It came up. We all know about SC Magazine, and together it was a project in the southwest of England with mainly fire and rescue services, but police were also involved, health and so on. It was all about secure collaboration, and our role, it's a 3-year program, was to improve the maturity of the emergency services and their partners, I guess, in the southwest of England, to support secure collaboration. It was a great program. Worked with some lovely people, and we delivered information assurance, risk assessments, policies and processes. We did loads of training, training senior information risk owners, developing risk processes. We did penetration testing. And we had to do a lot of outsourcing because the team was quite small in those days. And I can't remember who saw the advert in the SC magazine, but they came to me and said, we should go for this. And I thought, we're not going to win this. But we did. We go for it, rather. We went for it. We had to fill in this huge form and write about the program and the benefits and so on, and we did. And it was myself and my sales director at the time, who Martin Butcher, CCO. So we pulled together a response and working with the clients at the time as well, which is a collaboration of the Fire and Rescue Service in the Southwest. So we put this thing in, and we had I think it was an email that came through and said, come to, I think it was the Hilton Hotel in London for the award ceremony. And we must have been nominated or something, because they wouldn't have sent us this. So I thought, this is great. We're not going to win it, but it'd be a nice day out. It was really expensive. It was about £250 a head. And so we could only afford for myself, Martin, and one person from the client to go. I mean, for us, it was really expensive.
Yeah.
So we got there, and it was all swanky, and we had to wear tuxedos and stuff, and champagne. I was not used to that kind of life. And they gave us this table at the back of the hall, this big hall, all done out, all lights and stuff. And I thought, great, it's fine, because I'd get out quickly because we're at the back. And so our category came up, Security Project of the Year, and we were up against some big players, actually. Barclaycard, I think, Sentinel, TalkTalk, KPMG, I think were in there. Some big players. And it was I could see the big screen from the back of the room, and I could see the name Aristi. And I thought, I'm going to take a photograph of that. That's the only time we're going to see Aristi next to these amazing organisations in this
marketing head on.
In this backdrop. I'll probably use that at some point. As I was taking the photograph of this screen with Aristi on it, they announced the winner, and it was Aristi, and I missed that. And Martin said to me, "We've won." I looked at it, was what? I said, "We've won," and I could not believe it. And they called us up, so I went up, and I had to walk past all these tables, all these organisations that must have been looking at me thinking, who's this? Who's this guy? Who's Aristi?
Yeah.
And it was an absolutely amazing experience. We had probably a little bit too much champagne that night,
Sure.
but fantastic. But what that showed us was that, it kind of reinforced this belief that I had that we can do it. And, we can win against much larger organisations by just doing the right thing. it's the service and the value that's important, not necessarily the badge that you've got behind it. And we spent 3 years on this program, and we went all out. It was, build really good relationships, and we're still working with those fire and rescue services now.
Yeah.
And that's what how it was 2013.
12 years.
12 years. I think you can get at maths. I'm like 12 years, and they're still with us. So, but it was a real game changer for us, because that not only gave us the confidence that we're on the right path, but it really opened the doors for us to get into the emergency services as a credible service provider. And it's tough, when you're an unknown entity. No one wants to take, no pun intended, risks with an unknown entity. But because we won this award, we started to get noticed.
Yeah.
And I guess the rest is history, because we became quite good at providing services to fire and rescue services, and we worked with quite a few of them across the UK, and we still do, as you know.
Yep.
And that then led to police, and we, as you know, work with quite a lot of police forces in the UK now. And it was a real game changer for us.
For sure. And within there, you mentioned penetration testing.
Yes.
And so that's the first time you've mentioned it on this podcast. And people these days know us for penetration testing.
Oh, yes, they do, don't they? So
where did that pivot come from?
So we didn't start as a pen testing business, which is interesting, isn't it? We started because my background, although I'm a techie really, my background way back, my degree was in electronic engineering, but I spent most of my working career before that as a systems engineer, installing networks, configuring routers and switches, and back in the day when they were called Wellfleet and they became Cisco, installing networks, which some of you guys might have heard of. Token Ring, anyone have you heard of Token Ring? ArcNet even, ThickNet, ThinNet, Ethernet, Fast Ethernet, asynchronous transfer mode. So I was a proper techie. Then moved into, I became a Novell systems engineer, a great operating system. And then I got my first job when I left uni was as an engineer soldering, repairing Sun workstations to surface mount level. So we used to solder or desolder the components under a magnifying glass, and then solder new components in, and fault find and all that sort of stuff. But they had a sort of a training center. They then, which I did a Novell networking course. This is a little bit back to front. I did that first, actually. Became a Novell's network engineer, but got a sysadmin role, and then moved into the networking bit where I became a techie and started installing these networks. And there was a natural kind of progression for me. I can either go into voice and data or security, and I went into security, started configuring checkpoint firewalls, installing those. And but from that, when I was at this organisation as a cybersecurity or a security consultant, it was mainly I did my sort of time as a techie. I was an advisor. I was a cybersecurity advisor. We called them class consultants in those days. It was National Cybersecurity Centre used to be called CESG, and they had a scheme where they used to accredit advisors in the UK to provide services or advice back into government and critical national infrastructure. So I was one of those. And so my background became advisory. So when I set up Aristi, it was an advisory service. So we worked, the idea was that we'd go into organisations and conduct risk assessments and support them on building secure security strategies and so on. We outsourced our pen testing to a single pen tester who lived on the south coast. And then I think we brought another person in. We weren't Czech at that point, and it was much later, probably 4 or 5 years into the journey, when we decided that we need to bring penetration testing in as a core service, and it kind of grew from there, because that then became the service that we deliver. Now over the last sort of 10 years or so, we've been a penetration testing business, and that's where we are. We still have a small IA division, as you know, but we're a pen testing business. We've got a large penetration testing team now, Czech and Crest.
And what made you pivot at that point to focus on pen testing?
I think
scalability, or
I think it was probably a combination of things. my background was technical, so I did do a little bit of pen testing in my sort of technical world. So I still had this kind of desire to bring in technical services. IA isn't necessarily technical, so that was one reason. Secondly, there weren't many people doing penetration testing in those days, and I really felt that if it's a service that can provide real value to an organisation. I was thinking, imagine if we can find the holes before the bad guys. I suppose, I was had a limited view of the market. This is the first business I've ever set up. I'm not a marketing expert, so in my opinion, at the time, I thought pen testing was the way to go, and I'm really pleased that I did, because we've got a really strong team now, and it's definitely the way to go. If you want to know whether your business is secure, it's great having policies and procedures. I mean, that, don't get me wrong, information assurance is absolutely critical. But if you want to know if your business is secure, you need to get a pen test. And I'm not just saying it from a sales perspective. It's genuinely, that's what you need to do. Yeah. If your pen test will tell you, without doubt, whether the bad guys can get in or not.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And within that, you sort of mentioned how you looked to not only build a pen testing, but incorporate it into sort of Aristi's sort of core values and all that type of stuff. Yeah. And within those core values is a partnership model. Yeah. Often with pen testing businesses, and this is not slight on competitors or anything, it's project by project, in and out. We'll do the project, we'll give you the report, we'll then do the next project in however many months, years' time. Whereas we look at partnerships, don't we? So why was that important to you?
So I learned very early on that building good, strong relationships, and this is, again, one of the reasons I left my employer at the time. So building strong relationships is absolutely critical in business. Okay, so you need to build strong relationships with your customers, because that's what keeps the business going, especially during the tough times. You need to bring strong relationships with your team, because without your team, you haven't got a business. You need to build strong relationships with your suppliers. We didn't have many suppliers. We did, obviously you buy Nessus and things like that. But again, if you haven't got good relationships with your supply chain, when you need that favour, or when you need some support, they're not going to support you, because you haven't, supported them. And you need really good, strong relationships with your family and your friends, because they're going to be there for you when you need them. When things aren't going the way you want them to go, you're going to fall back to your family and friends. So building strong relationships, for me, is lifeblood of the business. And you can't run it, and you can't build a business without building strong relationships.
Absolutely. And within that as well is your sort of core philosophy of integrity before profit.
Absolutely.
Touch on what that.
Yeah. So you mentioned your dad. So this came when Dad's not around anymore, but he taught me some valuable lessons. He was a factory worker, and he took me to his factory, and he was a galvanizer. And I remember him. I remember seeing where he worked, and it was tough. It was a tough life. But what he did teach me was, earn your living with integrity, and do the right thing, because then you can sleep at night. I think a lot of businesses focus on making as much money as possible, as quickly as possible. That's short-term thinking. So you may make a lot of money quite quickly, but there's no strength in the relationships that you build, and it's quite fickle. So what I've always tried to do is to focus on delivering services with integrity, doing the right thing, because I think if you lead with that, the money will come anyway, as we've seen. The money will come, but when the money comes, it comes off the back of really, really strong relationships. Customers stay with us, not because we're the cheapest, it's because they trust us, and we've been there for them when they've needed us. If we just focus on the money, the business wouldn't have survived 17 years or whatever it is that we've been going. It's only survived, in my opinion, based on the strength of our relationships. So leading with integrity and value is the kind of crux of running a business. That's really important.
And we obviously lead with integrity, but the core values of Aristi are, well, really important to me. I know obviously really important to you. And it fascinates me. Before I joined, which is now for over 5 years ago, can you believe that? You built the core values with the people in the business. So
I did, yeah. So I remember it was, I think it was a team meeting. There was, I'm thinking now 7, 8 years ago. So I remember asking the team, what kind of business do you want to work for? What do you want this business to be? And this is again off the back of relationships. The business isn't just me; it's the team. I wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for you and the rest of the team. So
not just me.
Well, not just you, not just you, no, the team as well.
Okay.
Although you're an important player,
Thank you.
but it's not. It's all about you, Mike. So yeah, so what I asked the team, what kind of business do you want to build, and they, we had a really good discussion about the kind of things that were important to the team, and and I talked about what's important to me, and we documented those, and then distilled those into the 6 core values that we have now, and they're on our website and they're on all our documentation. But then what's important to me is that those core values came from the team. We all talked about what we want this business to be. And that's what's really important, and that's what's keeping the business going. And everyone is part of that. It's not just me saying we all need to be this. It's the business and the people in the business saying this is what we want to be. And that's really important, I think, in business, especially in the modern days when, we have a lot of disconnects, don't we? People working from home and, post the pandemic, it's really difficult to create connected environments, between people. And, people can feel a little bit left to their own devices and, a bit siloed. But, what I wanted to build was something which we can all feel part of. And you can only feel part of something if you feel that you are listened to and you have an important and valued contribution. And that's where the core values came from.
And it's important that they aren't just words. It's part of who we are at Aristi. They're not just branding, marketing, all that type of stuff.
Live and breathe them every day.
So, can you give me an example of how they've sort of been applied to a day-to-day?
So, I see this every day, in the way we operate. I see it with yourself and the rest of the senior management team. I see it with our testers. I'll give you one simple example. And I was talking to Rob, our CTO, about something, and he mentioned this to me, and it kind of resonated with me. So he was talking to me about a pen test that they were doing, and they were on a scoping call, and the client wanted to test. I think we'd done some of the work already, and there was another part of the exercise they wanted us to help with a different part of the scope, and the client, they said, can you test this third party entity for us as well? And it was in the bag. We could have done it. It was about 4 or 5 days worth of testing. It was a decent day rate. We could have done the test, tick the box, got the money, move on to the next one. But they didn't do that. They said to the client, we can't test that third party because we haven't got approval from the third party. And the client then went and got the approval from the third party, and then they tested it. And they waited. They gave the client some time. The easiest thing to do would be just to test the third party and then worry about the approval later. But they didn't do that because that wasn't the right thing to do. And I mean, it's only a simple example. I was genuinely touched when Rob told me about this. I thought that's brilliant because nobody's saying to them you have to do this. They're all doing the right thing because they believe it's the right thing to do. And that's great, and the client will remember us for that. And that's what's important, isn't it? They'll come back to us because we've done the right thing.
Absolutely. And so, you've mentioned how you've worn many hats in your career. I've got some written down here that you've not mentioned. Systems administrator, consultant, pre-sales, advisor, and of course now CEO. So what's one lesson you've learned through all of those roles?
I've learned a lot of lessons over the years. I think I've approached everything with this kind of, we can call it integrity, but it wasn't. I didn't know it was integrity. I just wanted to do the right thing, because that's how, again, it sounds a little bit cliched. That's kind of how I was brought up, to do the right thing, and treat people like you want them to treat you. So there were a number of things that, I've made loads of mistakes as I was, over the years. You make a mistake, then you learn from that mistake, and you move on, and you make another mistake. And I think making mistakes isn't an issue, because provided you learn from the mistakes, and you will make mistakes. The important thing in business is not to have this egotistical approach where I'm right and everyone else is wrong, and I don't want to admit that I made a mistake because that makes me feel vulnerable. The vulnerability is really important, and we talk about this a lot, don't we? In our, especially in our senior management team meetings, that we need to create an environment where people feel comfortable that they can say, I got that wrong, because that's the only way we're going to improve. So I think what I carried through in all my roles was this, just do the best that I can. Do that role, do that job that I'm doing at that time to the best of my ability. And, through when I was a techie, when I was climbing, was crawling around, under tables, plugging cables in, or working in dark, damp comms rooms under hospitals, installing, routers and switches. I always tried to do the best job that I could do. And we try and do that now as well, don't we? This is what the business is built on. It's just do the best job that we can do.
Absolutely. And we mentioned earlier how you said about you've got to turn up, even if it's, tough times and all that type of stuff, turning up. But that's just not just turning up at your desk.
No.
That's turning up mentally, physically.
Yeah.
Obviously, in this day and age, making sure your mental health is in the right state so you can then turn up and do the best for your job.
Yeah, so it's interesting you mentioned that, Mike, because in those days, I don't think I really understood the self-care part of running a business. Okay. I don't think I looked after myself very well. Long hours in the car, long hours on site, and then driving back, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And then getting up again, and then doing the same thing again, and then getting up again. I don't think I really understood how important looking after your well-being is, and I understand now. Yeah. I don't think I understood then. But yeah, you're right. It is mental health and well-being is super important, and we've built that into the core of the business. We want this to be not only a fun place to be, but a mentally healthy place to be. And, we do a lot of work around supporting our team on that.
Okay, and this is leading me to my final 2 questions.
Okay.
So what would you recommend to any entrepreneurs, leaders of divisions, aspiring leaders of divisions? What would you give us?
So I think always do whatever you're doing, do it with integrity. Do the best job you can do. And that's what builds those strong relationships. And the relationships are super important in business. You can't just say, I want to build a good relationship, but then do a naff job. You've got to back it up.
Yeah.
So lead with integrity, do the best job you can do, and focus on building genuine relationships. Always focus on delivering value. Now, we talked about this, but hunting the money and chasing the money. A lot of businesses focus on making as much money as possible. Focus on delivering value, because that's what keeps customers coming back to you, not the money bit. If you focus on making as much money as possible, you're going to struggle with retaining your own team, keeping customers happy, building long-term relationships. So focus on value. And the final thing I think is, and comes from my personal experience, stay present and enjoy the journey. I didn't do this in the early years. I remember coming home, spending time with my young family, but not actually being there. I remember playing with my young boys, but my mind was on, I've got to get that email done. I've got to prepare for that meeting tomorrow. I've got to write a report. And so I'm not there. I'm there, but I'm not there.
Yeah.
And I missed some really important experiences which I will never get back. So my advice would be stay present. And it's really hard to do this all the time. But, if you can just live your life with moment to moment awareness, just 20 minutes a day, just focus on where you are, focus on your breathing, look around, and just appreciate the amazing stuff that's around you. And enjoy the journey. So I focused too much, I think, in the early years on the goal, on the various goals. I need to deliver this. I need to get to this point. When you just focus on the goal, you don't enjoy the journey. So you get to the goal, you're burnt out. It becomes a bit of an anticlimax.
Yeah.
If you stay present and enjoy the journey, that goal then becomes more enjoyable. But you've also got these amazing experiences on the way to that goal. Now, we can do a whole podcast on this, but we won't. Not on this one anyway.
Oh, yeah, anyway.
But yeah, stay present, enjoy the journey, and you'll have a far better time. And you'll learn loads and appreciate more, and you'll be a better person for it.
So my final question was going to be, what would you have done differently? But you've kind of just answered.
Yeah, I think if I'd known about this whole sort of the self-care and staying present, if there's anything I don't want to regret is a strong word, but yes, it is a regret. I wish I'd been more present in the early years, especially in the years when I had a young family, and this is quite difficult for me to talk about, but it put a big strain on my relationship with my wife. It was a tough time. We got through it, but it was a really tough time. And
I remember you talking to me about how you would go on camping trips.
We did a lot of camping. We had, I think if anything, that's what kept us together. We bought an old caravan, and we had a sofa bed thing at the back which I ripped out, put 2 travel cots in there, and the 2 boys used to be in there in their baby grows, jumping up and down. Great, when you're spending your holidays in a small wooden box, it can only go 2 ways, and thankfully for me, it went the right way.
Yeah.
But we did a lot of camping. We moved on to a slightly newer caravan. We did buy a motorhome as well. Brilliant times, lovely times with the family. But I wish I'd been a little bit more present in the early years. What changed? I read a book by Eckhart Tolle about staying present. That changed it for me, switched it for me.
Yeah.
I wish I'd read it earlier.
Well, I think that's the key point that I'm getting from you is that you believe the business would be in the same position now if you'd have done all that self-care and being present back then. Whilst driving round and, working long hours and doing all that you felt was necessary for the business at the time. Yeah. Do you feel the business would be here now?
It's a really good question. It's difficult to know, isn't it? I don't want to change anything in the past, because then that would change stuff now.
Yeah.
And we're in a great place now. Sure. And, the boys have grown up and they've just started uni. The eldest took a year out, and they're both at uni doing really, really well. I've got a really good relationship with my wife. If she's listening, she might correct me when I go home. No, we have. And, we've got a great team here. We've got a really strong team of pen testers, really strong back office team. It's great. I'm really pleased with where we are. I don't want to change any of that. And it's a bit like Back to the Future. You change one small thing, and you could be someone else sitting here interviewing me, not you, Mike. So that would be great.
And that would have been a shame. And then, as any true salesman, I'm entitled to a bonus question. So, what's next for the business?
I thought you were going to say I'm entitled to a bonus.
Yeah, well, and that. But what's next for Aristi?
Continued growth. We've got a really good platform to grow our business. We've got a really strong set of services, really credible services, which we've built over the years, and we've got a really good loyal customer base growth. That's what I'm still on that same journey to be the best cybersecurity business in the UK, and we are getting there. We are doing really well, and I want to push and in the right way. I mean, we want to have fun while we're doing it.
Sure.
I don't know if you remember this, but so we used to have a target. I'm not going to say what the target was. We had a utilization target, and we still do. We have these team meetings, and in one of the team meetings, the testers said to me, I think our utilization target is too high. Can we reduce it? This is how we work. So we reduced it by 5%. Our productivity went up. I've never worked in an organisation where they've reduced the utilisation target. But we've got to listen to our team.
For sure.
And as you know, we always say at the team meetings, well, what kind of work do you guys want to do? And they'll say, we want to do, I don't know, SCADA testing. And we'll go and get SCADA work, become SCADA experts.
Drone testing.
Physical
security.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not just about looking after the customers. We've got to look after our teams as well. It's great. Love it.
Absolutely. Okay. So thank you for sharing your journey with us today.
It was a pleasure. It was easier than I thought. I was a bit wary about it. It's a very personal journey to me. And I'm pleased we did it. Thanks for suggesting it, Mike.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's I think there's a lot to learn from how you've built this business to where we are now, and here's to the future. So that's been the podcast for today. Thank you for listening. If you want to find out more, our website aristi.co.uk, all those usual things. Please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And thank you, Haj.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you for listening to our cybersecurity podcast. If you're keen to learn more, please visit our website www.aristi.co.uk. Cybersecurity made simple.